Do you love sticky notes? Well, I do. If you like reading notes in your own handwriting on sticky notes, back of envelopes, scratch paper, all that kind of stuff, if that seems like your to-do list, well, you just might have ADHD. So those of us that have ADHD need to leave reminders for ourselves all over the place. Well, why do we have to do this? So the brain is staffed with different messengers that serve different purposes. Well, who knew? I'll pick it up. It's amazing how quickly that can get you off track. This is one of the reasons why sticky notes are so important for people with ADHD. Number one reason, we need to have a visible reminder of what it is that we are trying to accomplish. And the reason we have to put something on a sticky note is we're not able to do it in that exact moment. And again, why is this? Well, we're short-staffed on the brain's messenger system that, serves concentration. We're also short-staffed on the one that serves pleasure. And so we're a little bit short on pleasure. Our brain feels like things aren't all right. And when things aren't all right, the motivation for action sometimes gets a little bit difficult to do. It's a little overwhelming. It's a little bit of a catch-22 type circle. So how do we get started? Well, if we can't get started in the moment, we leave ourselves a note for how to get started in the future. And this is why it's important for us to have whatever outlet it is, whether it is a literal sticky note, whether it is amazing how long that is taking my brain. Like, this is one of the fun things actually about filming this stuff, is it is exposing just how goddamn ADHD I am. And the fact that I actually love it and embracing it and am learning from it. And just, this is the real world. So why do we use sticky notes, scratch paper, the back of envelopes, the corner of a newspaper, or any number of things? Well, it's our brain's way of keeping our browser windows open. We keep the browser windows open because we know that we need to get around to these tasks later, and that if we close the browser window, chances are we're going to forget about it altogether. And if it was something that was important enough for us to write down on a piece of paper, important enough for us to do, and it's definitely made it high up on the priority list. So I think that's one of the reasons why we do it. Do you find yourself in a creative space? Are you the kind of person that likes to write? Is this what your office looks like? Well, if that's the case, you just might have ADHD. And that means, good for you. Let's embrace it. Let's keep those browser windows open. You know where everything is. You're going to get around to it in the time that you feel like you're able to get around to it. All right, now why is it important that we write things down in our own handwriting? Well, there's a lot of things that are a benefit from that. More often than not, a note from ourselves is more likely to be read, understood, and even if your own handwriting is a little hard to decipher, it seems like it comes from a legitimate source. Now, why on earth would people with ADHD, possibly have any sort of oppositional defiance against people that are in positions of authority? Well, oppositional defiance in people with ADHD really is something that is trained by both ends. People in authority who are trying to help people with ADHD accomplish tasks somehow unwittingly, despite their best efforts, by not understanding the true nature of ADHD, actually create oppositional defiance in the very people they're trying to get compliance from. Now, why is this? Well, the main reason, people with ADHD don't seem to process things linearly. We also don't seem to process time in the same way that people with a neurotypical type brain have. Some of what we get told is that we are lazy, or that we are procrastinating, or why can't we just follow directions? We want to. It would be really awesome to. It's just that basically, if it is something that requires an administrative function or an executive type skill, we don't have those. We're trying, and one of the ways that we are trying to do that is by learning to triangulate. So what does that mean? That means people with ADD or ADHD are trying very hard to solve these problems. It's just when you don't have the normal, let's use the example of an app that a lot of people have for accomplishing simple things like budgeting, taking notes for a meeting, or planning things in advance. A lot of those things we just don't have the natural application for. And a lot of times it can be like when your computer opens up a file from an email and asks you, well, what do you want to open this with? Well, our brains go to work and we try to figure it out. In the process of trying to figure that out, what ends up happening is it looks like we're stalling. No, we're not stalling, we're just not succeeding yet. We want to, we're trying. And so a little compassion for ourselves, and then also if understanding can be had on the part of the person who is asking an ADHD person to complete a task, to understand that we may not complete it in the way that they are originally asking us to do it, but in the end, we're going to probably get a good result. Well, I think that's where the sweet spot lies. It requires patience, it requires understanding, and it requires give and take from both people. One of the things that is so great about having notes written to ourselves on a sticky note or scratch pad or whatever surface we've decided to leave a note on, or a whiteboard, is there is an incredible sense of satisfaction that comes from being able to cross that off on our list. It was a little bit earlier, I thought of a joke, and it's a one-liner. Okay, are you ready? I'll show myself out. So recapping, tasks need completing. First, the potential task must be identified. Second, it has to be run by the dopamine police to see if it's deemed worthy of doing. Third, if the task cannot be immediately completed, then it must be labeled until such a time as circumstances allow. We can't rely on just remembering to do it, so we write ourselves a work order on something we have on hand. Fourth, when we place this work order in a place we know it will be seen, and when the stars align, we know we will find our instructions. Finally, the task can be completed, and the reminder can be discarded. And discarding the reminder is a very seriously dopamine satisfying task. As with all things ADHD, a sense of understanding and compassion of oneself is important. Embrace your gift. Do things the way you know how, while keeping an eye open for a more efficient means of completing tasks and unlocking that dopamine release. Good job. You've earned it. You deserve it. Throw that sticky note away and start on the next one.